This is a nation who once controlled 24% of the world's total land area, and 23% of the global population. This is the United Kingdom. Today, even if the UK is no longer anywhere near it used to be on the global level, it is still the second largest economy in Europe, and world's fifth largest economy. So, how Britain's economy has changed and adapted over the centuries? And is still one of the biggest economies in the world? Well, let's find out. So before the Industrial Revolution, Britain's economy, though growing slowly, was mainly backward and stagnant. But after the revolution from the mid-18th century, things started to change. The Industrial Revolution has resulted in Britain becoming one of the biggest economies in Europe during the first half of the 19th century. It made them the most prominent industrial power in the world economy. Between 1870 and 1900, economic output per head of the United Kingdom rose by 50%. Growth was associated with a significant rise in living standards. At that time, Britain also used the policy of mercantilism. Mercantilism is an economic policy, which is designed to maximize the exports and minimize the imports for an economy. The government protected its merchants, while kept others out by trade barriers and regulations. At the same time, they subsidized domestic industries in order to maximize exports. But by the second half of the 18th century, things started to change. The Industrial Revolution started to spread across the world. It ended mercantilism, and started the modern capitalism that we have today. Now, due to overseas competition, the Great Depression, and losses of World War I and II, Britain's economy has suffered a lot. After the end of World War II, Britain was no longer an industrial and military power. They lost their major power when India and Pakistan gained independence. This was end of the never-setting British Empire. Following World War II, the UK saw a slight economic growth, but it was lower compared to other European countries. In a time when other countries like Germany and France adopted a free market economy, Britain was adopting a nationalization policy. Many experts blame this move of the government. The nationalization policy impacted the productivity and innovation rate in the country. As a result, many other European countries outperformed the UK in many sectors. Then in the 80s, they started to change things up by rolling back the nationalizing process. Margaret Thatcher, also known as the Iron Lady of UK, and the first female Prime Minister of the country, was responsible for this economic change. Britain privatized many state-owned businesses, mainly in industrial and service sectors. But by this time, many industries in other nations were far ahead that of Britain. This limited the economy to the service-oriented sector. Mainly to the financial sector, which is the heart of Britain's economy. In 2018, the financial services generated $171 billion, and employed over 1 million people. This sector accounts for around 3/4 of the total GDP. The financial sector does not produce anything, but it does bring lots of money into the economy through banks, credit card companies, and other companies like insurance, accountancy, consumer finance, and also investment funds. London, which is the second biggest financial center after New York, is the most preferred place for these businesses. Another important industry in their economy is aerospace. This is the second largest aerospace industry in the world, which had a $45 billion turnover in 2019. The industry is a major employer in the manufacturing sector. In this, Rolls-Royce and BAE Systems are the major players. These companies are also involved in the country's defense sector. Coming to the trade, it has been a crucial part of the UK's economy. The total value of imports and exports represents nearly half the country's GDP. The volume of both the exports and the imports of the United Kingdom has grown steadily in recent years. The major exports include automobiles, machinery, electrical and electronic equipment, yet also chemicals, and oil. Now, if you consider services, particularly financial services, then they also help the country as another major export and contribute positively to Britain's trade balance. On the other hand, imports include machinery, chemicals, oil, and foodstuffs. So far, the European Union is the largest trading partner of the UK, following the US, China, and Switzerland. Now, even though Britain's economy is not much dependent on its oil export, it has still significantly benefited from it. You see, in times when the UK was extracting its peak oil and gas, their economy was struggling with high inflation, high unemployment, and also the country was undergoing deindustrialization. So the government used the oil wealth for restructuring the economy. It is estimated that, in the 80s, oil wealth generated over £166 billion in revenue. This allowed the government to spend more, and lower the taxes at the same time. Today, even though many industries shifted to more affordable places like China, the United Kingdom is still home of high-end manufacturing, such as premium automobiles like Rolls-Royce, McLaren, Bentley, Aston Martin, and many more. So this was a small overview of the UK's economy. Now let's head toward the challenges in front of the country. Due to the pandemic, the country's economy has faced its biggest annual decline in the past 300 years, as the GDP fell by 9.9%. Almost all the sectors in the economy saw a decline, and slight growth during the recovery. But many experts believe that this decline will not last for a long time after the recovery. Another thing that bothers the UK is the economic division within the country. Many of the business and financial institutions are located in London, making it one of the richest cities on earth. On the other hand, the rest of the UK has poor economic growth comparatively. If you look at the figures, then London's GDP per capita was around £54,700 in 2018, while the North East region only has £23,600 per head. In fact, if you add up the Scottish and Wales economies, and double the number, it will still be lower than London's economic output. Hence, this kind of economic divide creates social-economic problems in the country. Next thing that causes uncertainties is Brexit. Ever since Britain has decided to pull out from the European Union, it has got a lot of global attention. The nation said goodbye to the EU on January 31, 2021. This was one of the controversial moves by the country. As said before, the EU is their biggest trading partner, with 48% of exports, and around 52% of imports. Still, it is unclear how Brexit will impact the country's economy, as this occurred in middle of the pandemic. If you want to know more about the economic impacts of Brexit, then comment down below. We will try to make a video on it. Now, looking at the overall picture, we can say the economy of the United Kingdom is averagely developed. They have chosen stability over anything, which is actually a good thing in many ways. The country has an average GDP per capita, average wealth inequality index, and had pretty decent growth in previous years. Today, even though they do not have the influence like before, they still have significant weight in the world economy. Hence, the UK has shown the world how to adapt itself in changing times, and achieve economic growth. So what are your opinions on this? Please write in the comments below. Also, if you think we deserve, please consider subscribing.